go around and say what position you play on the LSC, not play, but what is your role on the LSC? Jen, would you mind starting?
Sure. I'm Jen Alper, teacher representative.
Robert Lee, parent representative.
Cynthia Bamboyani, community representative.
After Toledo, principal.
Bill Harmon, parent representative, vice chair.
Deputy Dean, support staff representative.
Amy Ellison, parent representative and chair.
Naomi, parent rep and secretary.
Okay, great. So we do have a forum. We have a couple of votes on the agenda today. I would like to make a change to the agenda and amend the agenda to include a brief report by our student council representatives, and they can deliver their report during the school committee organization reports at 7:30. Or we'll get to that probably sooner than that even. So does that sound okay? Okay. So I would like to amend that agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the amendment to the agenda?
I make motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the amended agenda passes. And did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes? Okay, any changes to the minutes? If there are no changes to the minutes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting in November? We don't have a printout. We send those out beforehand, so we don't.
It's in your email.
I make a motion to approve. I make a motion to approve the
second.
agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then, any opposed? Okay, so then the minutes have passed. And we can move on to public participation. Anyone want to bring up an issue that is not currently on the agenda or have a report of any kind or any question or statement they would like to make to the LSC? Okay, great. Then we will move on to the update on the CTU contract. We have Ms. Galligan here this morning who can tell us a little bit about what those updates mean since they have now officially passed through the teachers union.
Right, so, excuse my voice, cuts in and out this time of year. The things that are pertinent that would involve students, I'll just keep it to that because there's not much other things that can take forever. We've won enforceable staffing increases to be enforced by July 30th of 2023. A social worker in every school, every day, a nurse in every school, every day. Provision for 180 additional case managers and a 0.5 and a 2.5 case manager schools at all schools with either 50 or more IEPs, 120 additional positions for highest need schools, including counselors, restorative justice coordinators, and librarians, an increase in dedicated EOPT program supports and stipends, and a full-time homeless student coordinator in all schools with 75 or more homeless students, and 2 full-time positions with 140 more homeless students. For bilingual education, professional development for teachers of English language learners, the pipeline 50% reduced cost for tuition for bilingual or ESL endorsements, if teachers are wanting to get that. The board and union are going to work together to remove obstacles to parents of English learners volunteering in schools. And like on SPED, bilingual educators should need to be informed of what's in the principal's budget for EL resources and materials. Class size, enforceable class size guarantees, $35 million annually to reduce class size in classrooms 3 through 12 across the district, and prioritizing schools serving the most vulnerable students. A joint CTU and CPS council enforcement authority to reduce class sizes. Basically, the class size in a nutshell is probably the most difficult thing to understand, so I'll just give you kind of a thumbnail sketch. CPS's long-standing class size goals in Article 28 are now class size limits. So for kindergarten, 28 students, 1st to 3rd grade, 28 students, 4th to 8th grade, 31 students, and high school, 28 students. Any class size exceeding these limits is designated as an oversized class and is eligible to receive funding to split the class and add a teacher or add a teaching assistant where there's no capacity for a second class or any other appropriate relief. Class size relief will also be investigated for any class over Article 28-1's limits when an educator requests relief. Class size relief will automatically be triggered in every classroom in all CPS schools exceeding those upper class size limits. So, for instance, if a kindergarten class has 32 students enrolled, there would be 4 students over the limit. There's going to be an automatic audit that will be triggered downtown. And within 2 weeks, a case manager is supposed to come from downtown and speak to the teacher and administrator to see how they're going to make a plan to alleviate the overcrowding in the room.
So Mary, will that change being that we're a magnet school and we've already been, so our limits have to go down then?
It would,
because of that?
everybody's gonna have to comply with this at some point. It's gonna be enforceable, so. They are established, and this is gonna take some time. It's not something that's gonna change overnight. This is gonna be kind of implemented and phased in over the 5 years because the money is kind of spread out. So it's gonna take some time to kind of iron out the bugs. They are starting a joint class size assessment council also. So C2 and CPS are working on that. So that's gonna take some time. Sports committees with an annual budget of, they used to have a $5 million budget only, so they're gonna increase it 33% for annual funding to increase stipends for coaching and to get new equipment and resources for coaching, which is a nice thing for the kids because they'll be able to expand some opportunities for students. Sustainable community schools, guaranteeing $10 million annually for at least 20 schools for the term of the contract. Pre-K student-teacher ratio mandates a 10-to-1 child to teacher ratio at all times in pre-K. Subcontracting, effective the 2020-21 school year, ban on privatization for teacher clinicians, PSRP clinicians, teacher assistants, and librarians, and they're gonna phase out all contract nurses. Special education, development of IEPs are gonna be made solely by an IEP team. The IEP writing workload will be distributed equitably among special education teachers. Principals are required to use substitutes or release time to provide adequate time for special education duties to the extent possible. Special ed teachers will be last to be called to cover classes, and IEP minutes lost will be made up, and there will be a $2.5 million annual fund to reduce that workload. We're gonna increase the substitute teacher pool. We've had some serious shortages on substitutes. Substitutes who commit to work at least 3 days per week can join the cadre system and receive health insurance now, so that's kind of a nice perk for them. Substitute teachers are also guaranteed a duty-free lunch from now on. There will be a substitute handbook incorporated in the new contract that will be coming out for substitute teachers. Sanctuary schools establishes ways that CPS must protect our immigrant children, workers, and students. It bars ICE entry to school buildings without a criminal court warrant, and employees granted leave for immigration matters. Charter schools renews commitment to a net zero increase in the number of board authorized charters, same limits on the number of enrolled students. And those are the perks. We didn't give back one thing in the contract. We still got a lot of work to go. We realize that we got a lot of nice things in this, and CTU is committed for the next 5 years to really work on enforceable class size language and restoring our bargaining rights downtown. The governor, or downstate, the governor is gonna help us with that. We've got an obstacle that's gonna be retiring from the state senate in the house, so we'll be able to get those bargaining rights restored, which will allow us to strike over class size if we need to. So we're working at it, chipping away at rights and one at a time. You did a nice job.
So, the CTU is the only union in the state who cannot strike over
Yes.
class size issues.
Yes, so we're trying to get that restored.
Right.
The governor has actually spoke with Justice Sharkey 2 meetings ago and said he was drafting legislation personally. President Cullerton is retiring in January, and he was the main obstacle at this point fighting this legislation. So they're gonna push it through in the spring session. So I would urge anybody that votes to please allow this to happen. We're the only union in the state that is beholden beholden to this, and it was just done for political purposes, basically, so. So we're trying to get smaller class sizes for our kids, so that these kids can learn and not be crammed into rooms with 40 to 45 students.
And to have the money allocated. To
Yes,
people to
to have
accommodate that, yeah.
specifically allocated for that.
That change happened in 1995,
Yes.
under the Chicago Reform Act, and it was about consolidating mayoral power in
Right,
schools.
right.
So,
And the elected school board is the next bit of legislation that we're still trying to hold the mayor to her word. There's waffling back and forth on this elected school board business. So that's another thing that we're going to be asking parents to press their legislatures to please vote for this. As any information comes out, I can always get information to you guys who in turn can disseminate it to parents who'd be interested in that. And they're also trying to formulate some committees. There's also training, as well as CTU down at the CTU headquarters is doing training on special education and bilingual issues. If anybody wants that kind of information, the general public is able to go to these training sessions on how to make sure that your rights are being, your children's rights are being afforded to them and they're receiving whatever services that they need. And according to the law, please let me know. I can get you that information when those classes are. A lot of times they're on Saturday mornings. It's a 3-hour class. It's
Okay.
very informative.
that's really great to know. Thank you. I'll definitely reach out to you for that schedule.
Okay, great.
We were gonna lose a nurse, right? We don't have,
We've never, so the only reason we have a nurse is because we have students with life-threatening conditions. Only, not moving.
right, so this helps a lot of under-resourced schools. We are so fortunate at Thorpe, and we're fortunate for very many reasons. One of which is that Mr. Toledo has been able to really steward the budget in a way, even in really bad years, to make sure that we are not losing positions and that we can meet the needs of the kids. So just kudos to Thorpe and to the administration for being able to deal with these issues that a lot of under-resourced schools just literally don't have the resources. So thanks very much, Ms. Galligan.
You're very welcome. And also, I had asked the admins to put a flyer out to the public. So I'm not sure if they have them because I don't usually. From the bottom of my heart, and my members, I'd like to thank you all for your support. We were extremely heartwarmed. Every day we were out there bringing food and nourishment and relief, and we truly, truly appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the school committee reports and discussion. Student council, do you guys feel like can you do a little report very quickly? And talk a little bit about what you've been doing?
Guys, why don't you come
Come on
up
over.
here?
Yes, come on over here.
You're so soft-spoken.
Come on over here.
I know.
I want you to come over
And
here.
then we can get you on the live, on the YouTube stuff.
Oh, am I on there? What are you doing? Oh, sorry.
Talk about
Sorry.
our Spirit Week. Next week is we're gonna have Spirit Week. That's what we've planned. And also,
Speaking of loud,
Um,
we like.
different student council members will be holding the concessions during the dance.
so I think
And what's the money going to?
the money's going to our 7th and 8th grade trips for their funding, and then Miss Goldstein said that we're gonna some parents are gonna help us get those foods, so we're gonna all have a profit. There's not gonna be any deductions.
Great. And how often are you meeting?
Once a week
Okay.
during lunch and recess.
And there's a suggestion box.
Yeah,
Yes.
we inserted a suggestion box in the cafeteria, and so far it has been like, people have been putting some like spoons and blank sheets in there.
We talked about placement, maybe changing that a little bit,
So
right?
we're going to each classroom with like, confronted this, and so
Pretty messy.
we'll just see what happens.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
I'll take
There's
it.
also a food drive, right, so they're collecting, right, guys,
Yeah.
what's going on with the canned foods?
I haven't checked the classes, but they're collecting them.
Right, so, yeah, so this is one of the things, we collect canned foods, during this last month, and, I don't know where we are in terms of where we are with the school, but we normally turn that in at the end, at the dates, so. And the class that brings in the most,
It's an extra recess.
yeah, extra recess.
So are we supposed to store those cans in our room right now?
Mhm.
Because I have a pile.
Yes.
Yes.
Somewhere
We'll
you-
try to find a box.
Excuse me. let me-
Kindergarten's gone for.
I know. Kindergarten's always,
I would say one
Miss
can is
Sanabria
always, yes.
specifically, right?
This is
Yes.
another teacher painting up in
She
December.
normally gets about 110, cans is what she's aiming for.
Okay, so, moving on to.
Madonna wants to.
Oh,
Can I use up my little minute and then I can go?
yes, that's skipping ahead to the LSC committee reports, but yes, go ahead and.
So we met this week, on Friday, this past Friday, and we talked to the moms about the upcoming access test. That's the test that we're required to give each year annually to check their progress, in English acquisition. And then later, we talked to them also because in February, March, around the time of the Winter Olympics, the special arts teachers want to do a special project. I believe it's like 5th grade, that's one of the grade levels. And then they would like the moms to help because they're gonna take like, different countries around the world that participate in the Winter Olympics. And they wanna do something multicultural with that. So that's the special arts, project-based learning. So they want to have the moms help out with that. So I told them when I find out more information from the teachers, I would share that with them. And then our next meeting is on Valentine's Day, so it's basically next minutes.
Don't forget someone will have to cut out the review.
Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, so, sorry, jumping back up so that we can, also, release our other parents who are here. So PTA.
So the only thing, so fundraising is down this year by a lot. You're trying to figure out how to kind of make up for it, in the new year, but the next event we have is free. Next week, the Winter Wiggle on Thursday at 6 p.m. So this is kind of our first family dance, and it's for K-4. We're really excited about it. I think one thing for the vote was actually the 7th and 8th grade selling concessions.
Okay, well, and the thing is, because the 7th and 8th grade is selling concessions for something that is within the school, they don't absolutely have to have a vote, but it's just good for us to know about when fundraisers are happening. So I mean, we can do a little vote for just a general approval.
I have a question to ask Kristen. Kristen, would the PTA be interested in all, like how we have our plays, just to get a donation box out? Because when parents come to see the children's plays, some people just throw a few dollars in there, and it's free, but you could just say donations.
Yeah, we're thinking about that. So we've got, we do have a photographer in the school who's going to come into family, like a photo booth and a setup. So we're trying to figure out if we wanted to do donations for that aspect. And if we need to do concessions, I guess we're just.
The concessions you'll sell, but then this, I mean, I'm just saying, I sat on the door and parents that were coming to see their children's play, we're dropping money in there if you say donations accepted, so a little bit's better, you know?
That would be good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just trying to generate a little money.
Is that a good vote?
To have donations
Yeah.
put out for, would it be for the PTA?
Yeah, the money would go to the PTA, when the parents come to the dance.
I mean, we can't officially vote on that. I mean,
Do we have to?
well, but if it's the PTA, then yes, they're supposed to get Usually it's tomorrow. But actually, it's on, the Winter Wiggle is on here as a vote
Right.
or as a fundraiser. So I thought you were charging admission. If you're just taking donations, then we can vote now that it's okay for you to take donations because that was what.
Got it.
So, yeah, we can go ahead and vote on that.
Yeah.
So, can I get a motion to approve that the PTA accepts donations during the Winter Wiggle?
I make a motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so PTA is able to accept donations at the Winter Wiggle. Anything else that you want to talk about?
No,
Okay, all right. When is the next PTA meeting?
January 14th.
Thank you.
I have a question. Does the PTA have a budget that you guys are trying to reach?
We have a budget, I don't have the latest with me today, but, we have a budget, we are off, I would say right now by about $2,000. So, I can send the budget around, after the meeting, if you guys wanna see all the controversy.
What are the main things that you pay for every year? Like, what are the main expenditures that the PTA has?
So we have, we help with the, 7th grade, well, we help with the assemblies, the dance, and I don't know which grade that is actually, but it's, holding the space for the dance off-site, subscriptions for the teachers,
Well, you do the lunches during a prepared pickup.
yeah, absolutely, the teacher luncheons, teacher appreciation, any requests that the teachers,
And you have family activities that you do, like movies,
yeah.
the Winter Wiggle, which is
We're
free.
trying to do more free activities,
Yeah.
so that's also,
And are you doing a Zumba night?
we are doing, that's a family night, so we'll do Zumba in January, February.
Okay.
Um,
And last year you did a thing about social media that was sponsored by Facebook, and
Yeah.
so I just wanted to give everyone an idea of what it is that you do and how you contribute to. I mean, we see it all the time, but sometimes hearing it all at once is helpful to know. All the things that the PTA does in support of the school. Quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I shared with you their monthly reports from, with the friends about this.
Okay, any other questions about PTA? Oh, what time is the meeting in January?
6 p.m.
6 p.m., okay. So moving on to Friends of Thorpe.
So we had the Winter Fest over the weekend, and we had about 30 kids participate, which is about average. We don't have the financials yet, the financial report from the Winter Fest, our treasurer's at town, but we'll get that to you. So yeah, it was overall a big success. Seemed to go.
Okay.
So thank you for coming out. Everyone who participated involved.
So the things that we have, I don't know that we can do a final vote on the Queen of Hearts raffle yet, but we can start talking about it, right? Or
What, what questions do you have?
we just would need to know the times that it would be happening or
Oh, I see.
yeah. To vote for, because one of the things we have to do to vote for fundraisers is know what time of year they're happening so that we're not bumping up against, we're not layering too many fundraisers on top of each other.
That's dependent on, so we have to apply for a permit, a city permit. So depending on when we're granted.
Okay,
Permit. I mean, we're hoping to roll it out in early spring.
okay.
And that's a weekly event, right?
It is. For anyone who doesn't know, the Queen of Hearts raffle, we would purchase a raffle board and it would have the deck of cards laid out, 1 through, and I think we would include the Joker and, everything else in there. We hold a drawing every week to find the Queen of Hearts. If we don't find the Queen of Hearts that week, then it rolls over until we find it.
Right.
And I looked around to see if we had any friends of organizations that did it, and the only ones I saw were Friends of Bell, Friends of Audubon. But I think it's gaining traction, So I think we're gonna see it more
Mhm.
in the coming years.
Right.
But CPS has done it in the past, the Friends of organizations.
It's a lot of Catholic schools do it.
A lot of Catholic schools do it, and I think because they already have the permit through the city, and that's why it's easier for them, because they do a lot of fundraising already.
Yeah, and all raffles they all have to be 501c3s. You can't run a
Yes.
raffle in the city of Chicago unless you are a nonprofit.
Yes.
So you have to go through this process of getting this permit through the city.
Right.
So
So it would be, the fee is, I think, around $100. I'd have to look at it.
Mhm.
And I don't know how long it takes.
Okay.
To get that
Well,
application.
how-
And we would kind of like to roll it out before the spring event, because then maybe we could also sell raffle tickets then. And we'd like to have it coincide with unveiling the Thorpe campus plan, because this is the main reason why we're trying to raise the money.
So you're saying that you want to roll it out in the spring. You want to say, let's say for now, there's a tentative beginning date of March.
We're hoping.
Okay. So during that time, I don't really know of any other big fundraisers that are happening that time of year, except for the gala that you guys are
Which
using.
is in April.
Right.
It's on the Teacher Institute Day. It's on a Friday.
So I think that we can go ahead and vote on that if we can put a tentative date of March. Yes.
I think PTA was looking to do a readathon
Okay.
around around the time of the Scholastic Book Fair, which is in mid to late April.
Okay.
In addition, we would hold the raffle, we would have the raffle available online for purchase. And I believe, Mr. Toledo, you were gonna look into if we are able to sell it in school, but if we're not, we would probably hold it offsite.
So we can-
Okay, so we would hold it offsite, the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So the physical purchase of the tickets, they would have to be offsite. And we're looking at a few venues.
Okay.
But we would also make it available for purchase online at a cost of $5.
Is it too hard to do it once a quarter? I'm just asking.
I think you want to,
But actually, the secret to this raffle is slow and steady. So it's every week, it's $5. And you don't want it to win right away.
no.
You want this thing to drag out and
Yes.
drag out and
Yes.
drag out. So it's like you want everybody's like, oh, it's $5. Boom, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, whatever day you pick, $5, you know. And the marketing of it is, you want to push the, you get your tickets, $5. Come on, it's $5. And so you want this thing to drag on for a year. So there's this huge pool of money, and then the person who gets half and the school gets half. Yeah, this is.
Where was the one that was like a $2 million pot
That was
down?
in Wildwood or in that
Well,
area.
I think somebody just won $300,000 up at St. Julian's.
Yeah, right.
Fireball, yeah, so
Yeah.
it was like $600,000.
Awesome.
Yeah.
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 I
My
mean,
grade school. So it's really, it's a lucky draw. You want people to keep paying every week. Because you're thinking, oh shit, it's $1 million. It's a shit. It's $1 million, yeah, you can edit all that out. I just leave the whole thing out like the FBI. on that. But yeah, slow and steady wins the race on.
I just hope my students hear how often math is every day.
St. Pasco's does it, and they're making a ton. I mean,
They do it forever, yeah.
I know, Dave, I've seen it.
I pay that mortgage.
So we can't, we don't want to apply until we get the
approval to do it.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's only $100, but that would be $100 that we do.
Sure.
We don't get that. Sure.
Are we doing I mean, because I know we haven't talked about it yet, but the rollout of the campus park plan, are we doing it at our gala night?
We definitely want to put a presentation for it. I don't know if we would like to do it before then, because we're still going over some of the final details, but it is in its most final form now.
it's pretty cool.
really nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty amazing. So we're trying to.
And we're determined to get something out there. You have the grant that you.
Right, so there's a grant, from the Illinois, like, Energy Consortium or something like that, and it's up to $10,000 to install, a native pollinator garden. And it's a reimbursement program, unfortunately, so you have to do the work first, but then they'll reimburse up to $10,000, and they'll reimburse for a landscape architect, they'll reimburse for materials and plants, they'll reimburse for hardscape.
That's our kindergarten. One of our kindergarten PBLs are those gardens out there. We've been wanting to do something with it now for a number of years. That would work very, very well, especially if we brought it.
So it does have to be in a place that's not a planter, it has to be like a
Oh, it
standalone
does.
garden. So there has to be if there's some space somewhere, and it has to be 1,000 square feet or less. So it's not a huge amount of space, but if you could designate a pollinator space for that, then because it uses perennials and natives, so, yeah.
Well, you mean by the field, right, that long strip of, so that probably will fit this.
Right, because that is, I guess that's a planter, I guess.
No, even the pots. that are
The
on playground.
pots that are on the playground would not work.
Oh,
However,
no,
the
no,
strip
I
on the
thought
other
that was
side.
right by the cafeteria. That's what I
Exactly.
want.
yeah, that would be
That's exactly-
fine, that would be
Beautiful, that's what we
fine, not like not like those individual
No,
raised
we just done
beds,
it.
but something, yeah, that would be totally fine.
Awesome.
Yeah, but,
That's perfect.
so that's due January 16th, so we sort of have to get on that, but, yeah.
There's also millions of dollars that's untapped now with the capital plan that was passed last year. That each representative and they donate to schools. How that money is being rolled out, they're still unsure because we have a capital plan in 10 years. So a lot of the legislators have never done this before, so they're trying to figure it out.
We're supposedly on that capital plan for an elevator. And we were actually trying to see if we could tie in some of the things that we want to do with our campus park plan with that elevator plan. And I haven't asked, but we were waiting to get a little bit further away from the strike before we actually start reaching out to the CFO at CPS, because we've had multiple discussions with Bob Terrace about ADA compliance, and he's really the one who's pushing, because he's saying there are no magnet schools where this is a focus, and in fact, magnet schools are underserved because they're not tied to one alderman, or they're not tied to one, specific state rep. So I said most magnet schools are not ADA compliant, and have just been grandfathered in. So he really wants to push for us to be that school because of Alderman Spazzato specifically, because of the whole situation with his mobility and things like that. And he was such a driving
Now,
force.
you're talking about the funding stream that's coming from CPS, or
Well, we're looking from the state is what,
Right.
So we're on that, somewhere in that bill or whatever, there's something for us there.
what I'm saying, that there's money that's going to CPS, but then the different legislators, some of them do things a little different. They're like, they say, well, I'm not going to give the money to CPS, and then CPS takes credit for it, but it should come from me. So somebody,
That's the way we want to go.
Yeah.
We want to actually tie into the people who say, hey, this is for Thorpe School, let me put my sign out here and let everybody know what I did for Thorpe School.
which is, I don't know,
Get on it.
that's an easy trade-off, it's like, hey, we get an elevator, they want to put a big billboard of the big boy thing where he's waving, and care what's on the elevator, right?
Maybe you can reach out.
So it sounds like that there's money on the table that you're working with the
Yes.
elevator, but maybe there's more.
Is there anything that you could do for us, Dave, with the people that you know? To get it, or that we can reach out to besides?
Give me that parking spot and I'll.
When you're running
I do want to kind of bring us back to the Queen of Hearts, because I don't want to get us too far
Yeah.
off of what we're talking about. Does anybody, we can't approve it with a tentative start date at the beginning of March. But I want to know if anybody else needs any further discussion before we begin a vote for approval.
Just a quick question, what's the approval process from, you gotta go through the CPS, and as far as getting them to
No,
sign
it's
off on
all through the city,
it?
the
Okay,
permit or license. from there, we would draft the rules and then we present it to the LSC. We'd have something more concrete as soon as we get approval, because there's no sense in putting all this work and then we don't get the permit, we don't get LSC approval, it's.
Right. Okay. So, any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, then I would like to have someone move to vote to approve that the Friends of Thorpe applies for the permit that they need in order to run the Queen of Parks raffle with a tentative start date in March.
A motion.
In a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, so then the motion passes, so go ahead and do that. And then do you want to also do the pub quiz fundraiser?
We have one other fundraiser on the board, it's the pub quiz. It's on January 26th, Sunday. We're looking at a 2 or 3 p.m. start time. And it usually runs about 2 hours, 3 hours, with a break in between. It's a fun event, really fun.
Where's it at this year?
I'm sorry, it's at MCM Pub. It's on Cicero, just south of Irving. Yeah, for anyone who goes there, it's a really fun event. You can test your.
Speaking
Yes, you won that one year.
Good morning, students, staff, parents. Please stand for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. And this morning, I have special guests with me.
Nora Harmon from 307. Kalina Alvarez from 304. Kaylee Vasquez from 206.
206.
I mean 302. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now for a few announcements. The word of the day is
Sodden. It means heavy with or as if with moisture.
and what are you ladies thankful for?
I'm thankful that we get to help kids and adults in need. For teachers helping us get into high school. And I'm thankful for my health. Announcement. Miss McGoldrick asked if you need a basketball schedule, see her at your recess period.
Thank you and have a great day. Learn like a champion today.
Never heard of Mr. Dunlap come up with that.
Okay, can I make a motion to approve the
I just
pub
have
quiz?
one more thing to add to that. Usually we have, usually the 7th or 8th grade committee has come to us in the past to see if we could pass the hat around or some sort of additional fundraising to help out. So I just wanted to throw that out to the 7th and 8th grade committee. If they wanted to have some sort of additional fundraising during pub quiz, we're open to it.
Okay.
So just come see us.
That's great. They do the pub quiz fundraiser annually. It's one of their kind of stalwart fundraisers. It's usually in January, so
And
this
it's
is
for
not
adults
really,
only.
and it's for adults only, right? Adult beverages, adult topics. So yeah, adult humor delivered by my somewhat adult husband. So can I have a motion to approve the pub quiz fundraiser?
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, so the pub quiz fundraiser passes for January 26th at the NCM Pub. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Harriet.
Friends of Thorpe, for everything, including this master campus plan and everything
It's
else.
amazing, you guys, I mean, you guys are gonna love it. And we are determined to make it happen. As long as I'm here, I'm gonna.
Is there a report from the 7th and 8th grade committee on fundraising? I know that committee is sort of in flux a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the reason why, with regards to that, the parents aren't really doing any fundraising anymore. So we are using really the parents for things like helping us with planning activities, like the 8th graders want to do it. They want to do a night dance. This is what and I was like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. However, we have to talk to the parents to see if that's something we can do. So they're not really doing fundraising as much. We're actually doing pretty well. I think we have $11,000 in the bank, which is pretty good.
How's it going for the DC trip?
DC trip is on schedule. Like we sort of front the cost because since we've established this dual grade committee, it helps us out a lot. So we're collecting payments, but those payments normally go directly through to the travel agency. So they just pay them directly, so we don't have to do any of the fundraising. So that seems to be going well. No, we're on track, and our goal is to always have a sizable portion of money in there, and hopefully, like the goal is to have everything prepaid for the class the next year. We're not there yet, but that's the goal. So that way it's continually replenished.
Okay. So moving on to the LSC committee reports. Maybe put established chairs off there. We put established.
Before we move on, the 7th and 8th grade committee. So science fair. So tomorrow is our parent preview day. So and I encourage everybody to come out, even if you don't. I mean, excuse me, tonight. Tonight is parent preview night. So that way parents come out, take a look at the project, see what's coming up for your kids. We work really hard on helping kids figure out what a testable hypothesis is, and we still have some more work to do. However, the nice thing about that is, as the 3rd and 4th graders, 5th and 6th graders see it, and our teachers as well, it sort of says, okay, we're working towards these culminating activities, science fair, history fair, etc., in 7th and 8th grade, that we're expecting the kids to do, like learn specific skills in order for them to get to that point. This is really I'm really looking forward to seeing the kids participating in this. I've seen how hard they worked on it, Mr. Mackey as well, and actually that 7th and 8th grade team, because they've all been looking at those 7th and 8th grade science fair projects. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a wonderful event. And then science fair is tomorrow, starting at 8 a.m. So we need judges. So if you guys have a little bit of time, come on over. Feel free to come by. Tomorrow, yeah, from 8 till about 11, we should be finished. There will be donuts and coffee and whatever else, other high carb treats we can find.
Thank you, Mr. Cato. Moving on to the LSC committee reports. PPLC, Professional Personnel Leadership Committee.
A lot of what we talked about yesterday pertained to the school quality ratings report. So we talked about first MAP and what we can do to improve MAP scores. So reviewing vocabulary, having systematic, sorry, I need readers. Systematic like protocols or different ways we're doing all through the grades. Certain math concepts, so they see it repetitively. And so talking a lot about vocabulary. We also talked a lot about the 5 Essentials survey, and we focused mostly on the students portion. There's 2 things. Number 1, did the students really understand what they're asking? So we're talking about going through the survey with them and making sure they understand it now. And the other aspect is, if they're feeling a certain way, why are they feeling that way? Because we want to, it's important that we improve what we need to. So then we're gonna have them take it, and then we're gonna have them take it again and explain it a little more and get their feedback, so they'll understand it better, and we'll understand if there's any things that we could be working on. Those are the major things we talked about.
Currently, CPS is seeking input on the SQRP and its effectiveness in rating schools. So I'll send everybody the link to the survey for that. Because you can give feedback as to whether or not you think that the SQRP is an effective tool for rating schools. Currently, the SQR, I mean, that is the rating system. That's the system by which we get the 1s or the 2s or whatever it is that we're rated by the schools. And currently the heaviest thing that's evaluated is test scores. That's the main thing that is in attendance. So test scores and attendance are the two like most heavily weighted. And the test scores for our elementary schools are the NWEA or the NEWA, however you decide to call that. So those are the two most heavily weighted. The 5 essentials is the survey that is taken by parents, teachers, and students. Usually you see it at report card pickup day, but there are usually links to it in the Friday letter. It asks a lot about the school atmosphere, environment, the culture of learning in the school. And that's also, a fairly significant portion of the rating system, and it can really kind of bring the school rating up, or it can be the thing that makes or breaks a school rating. But people have concerns about what things get so much weight in the SQRP and whether or not that really is the most effective way of rating a school. So for high schools, they're judged a lot on graduation rates and on track, sort of a grade level on track performance by freshmen and sophomores, and so those things are really weighted heavily for high schools. Elementary schools, it really is about the NEWA and attendance in large measure. So if you have thoughts about the SQRP, I'll send the link around. You can give your input. There are also links to explanations to how the SQRP is decided, so you can kind of go and take a look and see what those elements are that decide a rating for a school. I have feelings about it, but I won't go into it.
No, I mean, overall, like I'm part of that committee, that SQRP committee, and overall, I kind of like the SQRP because there's a lot of different factors and they do take into account different. That's why the whole metric on growth is so important. I wish that they would, and attainments also in there, but we're not going to have a really big discussion about SQRP other than the changes that they're thinking about making for SQRP for elementary schools will be very interesting. They're tying student performance in high schools to elementary schools. So that will be coming. Right. And so as an elementary school principal, I'm like, I can't do anything about the kid in high school. And they're basically saying, you did do something about that kid in high school. So I'm intrigued. It would definitely foster more continuity. That's one of the proposed changes for the SQRP 3.0 or whatever it is now. But it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, they're having a feedback session.
Right. I mean, my concern about it is that the NEWA is just math and reading, and so that means that there's such focus on math and reading to the detriment of social studies and science. In a lot of schools, I'm not saying that's true of Thornton, but for a lot of places who feel like that the NEWA is their make or break for a rating, then they're going to go all in on math and reading, and science and social studies and other subjects get short shrift.
Do we have, what tools do we have in place, like for test taking? Like, because kids get, when the test comes up, they get anxiety.
So we try not to have, it used to be March was drop everything and just, this is all we're doing. We try to get away from that model. I mean, there's still some of that happens, but for the most part, these are the things that Ms. Alba was talking about in terms of creating systematic structures so that they're mirrored from year to year. For example, I was in a 5th grade classroom yesterday and we were talking about adding and subtracting fractions. The kids are still having trouble with common denominators. And I said, a denominator is a unit, and teachers have taught it with the bar model, and basically breaking up that bar model into different units. But that translation hasn't happened because not everybody in the school is using that same concept, right? So that's what we're talking about in terms of coming up with what are the systematic things that we have across the board that we say, this is the way that we teach, common denominators. This is the way that we teach vocabulary. This is the way that we build in review, because Ms. Alper's teaching 11th grade math because of NWA. Ms. Dacker's teaching 8th and 9th grade math in 4th grade because of NWA. Because NWA rates you on, like, if you're a high-performing school, there is no way that you can just teach at grade level. You have to teach sometimes 2 and 3 grade levels above you in order for those kids to hit their growth targets. So that's the difficulty that we have, and what we've seen with NWA is that it's very cyclical. So you'll have an up year, and then the growth will come crashing down because the kids have to catch up with what they've learned. So at Fort, we've been pretty good about having continual, continually going up until last year, where all of a sudden we saw some changes. 2% change from a 91% in reading to an 89% in reading, right? Which is statistically pretty close. But you're given a level 1 plus automatically if you have 90% in reading and 90% in math. What brought us down were a number of things. Was the renewed focus on EL, which they haven't done in a long time because they haven't really done that access test. So this was the first year that access counted again. So we're looking at our practices in access. And honestly, the 5 essentials. 5 essentials was the make or break for us. And when we look at that and we say, okay, look at what our school is, right? And why are we being looked at as moderately organized when we know we have a pretty well-functioning school here so this is what we're sort of looking at. And it's also like, I've been part of multiple principal PLCs around 5 essentials. And at different schools, they say it's not a reading comprehension test. So what they have is that they have the teachers take the test with the kids and they talk about questions. We've never done any of that stuff. So we're going to look at some of those practices, and what we want from the 5 essentials is that it give us a very good indicator of where we're really at. So that was one of the reasons why Ms. Albert and was talking about having like a pre-5 essentials, so we can sort of see, where we are, talking about the definition of terms, doing all of these types of things with kids. Which I think will help us a lot, and it'll also help us in terms of just changing practices so that we do address the concerns that are up there without necessarily hurting ourselves, because it does hurt us when somebody's comparing schools and they're looking at Portage Park or they're looking at Fort, right? And in terms of academics, we're higher up, but in terms of 5 essentials, we're not, right? And some kids will go to that other school because they'll look and they'll say, oh, well, they have effective leadership, Yeah, Fort, they're only neutral on effective leadership, right? So those types of things are things that we have to really be strategic about.
Robert, you were asking about supports for testing now. So I know that we do Saturday school.
Saturday school, yep.
So we do Saturday school, which is free, and it offers the same kind of test prep. Really, essentially, my kids have done some Saturday school stuff, and that it's very similar to what they would get in a test prep that you would pay for. And that's one thing that WARP has done year after year, is offer these Saturday morning classes for kids to come in and get support for the high school enrollment test and for NEWA if they need additional prep or additional help if they're feeling anxious about it. That's especially for kids who are taking NEWA in 7th grade, because that counts for high school.
And we've expanded it now from 3rd grade. So last Saturday was the first time that we had from 3rd grade. We had about 60, 70 kids. My guess is that the program is going to become much bigger.
So that's one element of support that they have. And I know that in 7th grade, that all teachers are sort of all hands on deck for NEWA. My experience has been that teachers really do understand what the kids are up against and what the things that they need in order to do well on that test.
And a Saturday teacher, is that one of the normal staff members, or?
It's teachers from Fort are doing the Saturday school.
Yes, I also have another teacher from another school who's also helping us out with me.
Anything else for the PPLC? Okay. Continuous improvement work plan. This is a CIWP year, so there have been meetings that have been taking place.
So I'll defer to when I get to the principal's report, because I've actually linked to the minutes for the CIWP.
Okay.
But in general, where we are right now is we have 2 teams, right? We have
Team understanding and
team data and team understanding, right? And we're working through some of those things based on last year's CIWP, last 2 years CIWP, and then making sure that we're making progress on both definitions and how we measure our success.
I've been attending the meetings and they've been really interesting. It would be great if other members of the LSC could also attend the meetings, if at all humanly possible. The next one, as listed on your agenda, is December 16th at 2:45 PM. We will, I think that we're gonna try to establish some more meetings that we'll be able to publish in the Friday letter. And I think some of the meetings have been published in the Friday letter. So the meetings are being published in the Friday letter. And I know that, Mr. Roberts has been largely organizing the CIWP, and he is interested in, of course, wider participation and participation in as many different diverse groups as possible. And that will become even more important as we've gone a little bit further in data collection and defining some of the things that we're talking about, so we're all working from a common understanding of what it is that's being addressed. The Principal Evaluation Committee, PEC.
Sorry, I was putting that in my calendar. So we met last week. We sent out to all the members the data and the reviews from the last 2 years, 2018, 2019. Obviously, this year is a contract year, so there's a little more expedience to what we're trying to do. We are trying to get the parent survey out. Usually that's something we would send out in March or April. We're trying to get that out still, hopefully, before break. That's how I'm not always here to get this out. With the help of Amy Ellis, who's really taken heed of this and my lack of experience with it, so I appreciate your help.
You're doing a good job.
No, it's
Both of us.
Team.
there's a team.
Everybody works
Yeah,
together.
I'm just the man behind the curtain. So we're gonna get that, like I said, we reviewed the principal performance. Everyone has seen the copy from the last 2 years. I'd like to get the new survey out. Amy, do you think we could do that?
Well, I mean, we sent out the survey in the email and asked that if anybody had any changes to the survey, particularly because at the last PEC meeting, we wanted to make sure that we were asking questions that we felt like were relevant to any issues that we wanted to make sure were being addressed or being discussed. So if we have any changes to the survey in wording, or if we want to ask additional questions, we have to get those approved by the legal department at CPS, because as a human relations issue, or human resources issue rather, we can't ask questions that are illegal to ask. We can't ask questions about things that are outside of our purview. So basically, those review of questions just ensures that we are not publicly addressing issues that we just simply can't, that are beyond our purview. So I hope everyone had a chance to look at those survey questions, especially those who were in attendance at the PEC meeting last week, because there were some issues that were raised there about the possibility of changing some of the questions. We would need to submit any of those changes. I doubt that we're gonna be able to get the survey before break, because if we have any changes, then we would need to get those submitted to CPS. I do think that it's reasonable to expect that we can get the survey out in January. So,
when will you bring this deadline on, if there are any changes for us?
I would say that we would need to have changes by Friday.
I do have a couple of questions, but it is about principal evaluation, so I'm not going to be too specific, other than, does the LSC have a date when they're going to make a determination on contract? Like, are you anticipating it before the end of the year?
Yes.
Before the end of the school year? And because again, as I have mentioned a number of times, this creates a whole lot of unnecessary commotion.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just my job. It's also, you have the administrators, you have clerks, you have multiple people whose positions are not tied into, they're really tied into the principal. And when like all of this type of stuff creates things, because it sounds to me like there's a lot of good work that's happening. But if you guys have a pretty good idea of that you're gonna be offering in the contract, the sooner the better. I just think that might make things a little bit, definitely smoother in my life, but that's not what we're talking about. Most important thing is that this does affect the school. And the longer that we're waiting about this, the more I'm thinking about, are we taking again, I have concerns, but I'm obviously not pressing LSC. I would have liked to have this decision done by December because of the things that I had said. But obviously it takes a little bit of time. So But I just wanted.
We were hamstrung a little bit by the strike, and that we couldn't have meetings during that time. And we have tried to escalate for our last meeting as fast as we can but we do need to get a little bit more information before we move forward with that. But our goal is to be able to have, by.
I would love for PEC to come up with a date because again, if you're gonna tell me by May 1st, because that's when.
It will not be by May
That's when
1st,
the
it will
evaluation
not be by May 1st, it will, our goal is by, for official would be March.
So I'll take that but I've not heard from the PEC committee, so I'm assuming that vote hasn't happened. I would strongly encourage you all to talk about this, because it obviously affects me, but to be honest, I'm not as worried as my APs and other people. Because I'm pretty,
Yeah, we have heard this, and so we will do our best to
We're meeting every week.
Yeah, there's, we want to
We need to start doing that.
there are certain things, obviously, we need to checklist through.
Like our next meeting.
The actual performance for 2020 will probably come later, right? But in terms of the contract renewal, we will, the 2020 review and survey will still probably be at the end of the year, but in terms of contract renewal, we will expedite that and hope to have that done in the first.
because I have no problem with you guys putting it all together. I mean, it doesn't matter, like, again, as long as I know that this is what you guys are saying, here's what it is, then I can plan accordingly. But if I don't know, because it's sort of an insult to the school if the principal is going around and passing out resumes, right? It is. And I don't want to put myself into that position, but I have to think about the job. And not only me, there's multiple people that are tied into this job. And again, I don't want to, I know it sounds like I'm pressing, but this is something that we've known about for a year, right? And we could start thinking about this stuff for a
And I
while.
understand, because if this was me, I'm putting myself in Mr. Tato's place, I wouldn't want to be sitting on the threshold waiting, am I going to be here, am I not, should I be putting out, because principals, when they're going to retire, it's in January, so what schools are going to be open for that following school year, since the principal's place, usually July 1st, if they have the contract then. So contractually, principals are out there, they're going to retire already, and there's going to be, so we have, at least let them know as soon as we can if he's being retained, and then like those.
Yeah, we're expediting the process.
I understand.
Well, also,
Just wanted to-
it's important, foundational of the activity is peace of mind for the first second. So he's not making reasonable request, I really think, we will ask him.
But it's not just the principal. So this is why this is kind of important. because it
It's a
does
team,
create-
yes, working for the team, it's not one individual person, nobody's.
At the same time, we also want to make sure that we are getting the feedback that we need to get back from all of the shareholders, so that at such time a contract is renewed, it is renewed in full faith that the LSC has done its job to the best of its extent in the most transparent way, so that there is great confidence in the decision that the LSC has made. Because that is also a really important aspect of making sure that there is value in what's taking place. So we are expediting as fast as we can, given the fact that we lost 3 weeks in October. The next thing that we need to make sure that we do is we do want to have, at a PEC meeting, we want to advertise the possibility for people to come if they have any feedback that they want to give to the PEC in person. So we want to establish a January meeting fairly early in January, be able to publicize that in the Friday letter, saying that we are having a principal evaluation committee meeting. There will be time for public participation before the principal evaluation committee goes into closed session.
I will send out a doodle for the next PDC, or do you want to set it now?
What do we do now?
I think at the end of this meeting, we can establish that. We don't have to do it right now, but we can put it at the end
I
of this
mean,
meeting.
now is today.
But at the end of this meeting, we can establish when that is going to take place.
There's still a lot left.
So if we could ask, my one request is
on
that
the agenda.
PDC give me and again, I have no problem if it's May 1st, but I just need to know what.
We'll establish by that meeting, we will have a hard and fast date.
I appreciate it.
established by that.
Thank you so much.
And so please don't run off. Let's get some meetings on the calendar before everybody leaves today. Okay, so we already heard from the Bilingual Advisory Committee from Ms. Zaradondo. The only other thing that I would like to say about that is that a couple of parents have approached me, and I think that this could actually be something that we kind of utilize in the Bilingual Advisory Committee to work on a diversity and inclusion committee, where there's a committee that perhaps takes a look at ways that the Thorpe community can be more inclusive and be able to, for example, one example of that is that we do have headsets that are available for translation, for simultaneous translation. That's kind of a project to ensure that that takes place. So it might be something, and this is just something that I'm putting out there, that there's some parents who are interested in this. I don't know if it would be a committee that would be under the LSC. I don't know if it would be a committee that would be through PTA or Friends of Thorpe, or what it would be under, but I'm putting this out to the LSC to think about it and have be sort of thinking about where that might go or how that might work, or if there is already an organization that could be working to help with that. But that committee could make recommendations about ways that we make sure that all groups feel included at the school. So anyway, just something that we could put out there. I don't know if there are any LSC members who are interested in thinking about that or working on that, but you can let me know. We can talk about that at future meetings as well. The LSC Committee on Diverse Learners. Anna, do you have anything that you would like to?
We just had a workshop last week. It was really great. ODLSS came out. That's the Office of Diverse Learners. Their parent involvement specialist is a group of 4 women who have worked in CPS and are also parents who had kids with diverse needs as well. So they came and talked to our parents. It was really good. They won't be able to come back again because they're pretty much trying to hit every school, but they have their doors open to any families here at Thorpe that want to reach out to them. And we have that information that we sent out on our email list as well as our Facebook page. If you want to view it, you can get their phone numbers, reach out to them. In the future, we have Ms. Stoll and Michelle Duda, our occupational therapist, are working on a t-shirt design with our students for Autism Awareness Month, which will be coined neurodiversities, and we are going to look over just varied things that are underneath that whole Autism Awareness Month. So you'll probably have us in the next meeting voting on because we'll be selling t-shirts.
Okay.
So you'll hear more about that. And then in the spring, we have something as well. So, but that is about it for now. We're kind of.
Yeah, you guys have been very, very busy. Yeah. So do you have, did you say what the next meeting date is? For the next
So we are going to be, that's the other thing. We're going to be sending out a survey to our families because we're trying to find out what days work best for them. Where these families are definitely at their toughest. What we are going to hope for, and we had mentioned this in the last meeting when we sat down with Mr. Toledo, is finding a day after school where the after school program would be able to watch the kids for the families while we have the meeting. But I want to try to get a day down with our families through this survey so that they can take advantage of that.
Okay.
So we'll hopefully have that because Jen's helping me, Jen Jones is helping me work on that survey, so,
Okay, great.
we'll hopefully have that by the next meeting.
Okay. I gotta say, in talking to other LSCs, we are one of the most surveyed schools that I know. We solicit feedback a lot, which is something that we should be good at. It's a great thing. It's a really good thing. That's not happening in a lot of other schools, so just, that's definitely a plus in our column. Also, Elena,
Yeah.
so you may already know, but maybe you want to be in touch with Ms. Galligan about the CTU trainings that they have. Did you hear her? talk
We've
about
actually, I didn't want to interrupt her. We've actually advertised all of that.
that? Okay.
So
great.
we've been sending that out to our families to let them know that
Okay.
they can do that. And then ODLSS also has training during the week,
Okay.
which we send out to our families
Okay, great.
to let them know as well.
Right.
And these are, to what Mary was talking about,
Mhm.
that's across the board, sort of like helpful information to families across the board. But there is more specific to learning about the process of an IEP and a 504 that ODLSS does monthly through CPS, and it's during the week. Sometimes it can be on the south side. Sometimes it's pretty close to here too. So you just have to be paying attention, and they do it 4 times a month. A really exciting one that they're going to be doing, I think in December, they're adding a behavior aspect to it.
Okay.
So these are the behavior specialists that work within CPS that will be training these programs, which it heavily influences an IEP or 504 at times.
Right.
And I know that a lot of families ask questions about this inside the school because you don't know everything that's going on inside the classroom. These training classes this month with that piece in it, super important.
Right.
So like I said, we've been sending out the information to our families.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The Wellness Committee, I'm hoping that is going to get going again in January. There were some people who were interested in doing, chairing that committee and had let some life issues erupt as it does. And so we are going to look to reconstitute that in January because there are a lot of things that the Wellness Committee could do. Communications Committee.
I think in the last meeting, we thought of trying to combine some of that in this meeting, and I realized we won't have any time today. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, we have before the next year, maybe next week to meet, could that be like a online meeting that we could do? I know we did that in the past earlier. Would it be more convenient, or it could be more convenient for people?
Right. I have to look into that because it depends. It's hard with the Open Meetings Act stuff. If you're a committee of the LSC, then you're supposed to be
Even if we
publicizing.
send it out, like as a link, what people could show.
Because you have to have the ability to have public participation at every meeting. At every meeting, you have to have the ability for people to come and listen and participate.
Or have some people that help you out.
Right. So it's
Okay.
the Open Meeting Act. It's great for transparency. It makes it hard sometimes to make sure that people can. You can still work on, people can be assigned projects to work on, and they can need to work on those projects. It's just that, and then those projects are discussed at the open meeting. So you can work on.
So if we have a working session that we want to do on just the newsletter, is that something we could work on
If you
next
have
week
people,
and then
yes,
come
if you
back
have,
for the next meeting
and then report back on yes, you can have individuals work on specific projects, as long as those projects are discussed in a larger meeting.
Okay.
And that can either be a larger communications meeting, or that can be reported back in a larger LSC meeting. But if a decision is going to be made about something, like we have a newsletter, we already know the contents of the newsletter. This is about the formatting of the newsletter and getting it out more, to make sure that people, this is an example, I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. But, so yes, you can have individuals work on that project and discuss it. So if there are 4 people or more meeting together, then you have to have a special meeting or a committee meeting that is open to the public.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so in that case, I'll send out a doodle, and see if we get participation for next week. If not, we'll try to gather ideas over email, and work on it early next week.
I had something I wanted to add in the communications.
Yeah.
But you're about to say something.
No, go ahead.
So last meeting, Mr. Toledo had brought up the communication software options. I did a little bit of looking around. Commonsense.org has a couple of lists of software systems that they recommend, and I looked through them just to see what kind of jumped out at me. Some of them are paid, and a lot of them are free. Like Class Dojo is free, so I didn't know if there was a requirement for it to be free software, or if we would pay for software. Parent Square looked like a good option, but as I was looking through them, there's a lot of different functionality. So it's it would be, I guess, good to understand like what Class Dojo or Google Classroom aren't doing now that we're looking for, and where those get, because like for example, some of the software systems have multilingual capacity that I thought was really interesting. A lot of them also are more kind of on the social media side that I didn't think was that interesting. But for me, Parent Square and Remind jumped out as big ones. I spoke with, I have third-hand knowledge of what they do at Hawthorne. They used Blossoms last year, but that was on the list. But this year they're using Class Dojo. And there is, as far as that parent understood, there's nothing that links directly with Aspen that they are using. So I was just trying to reach out to Hawthorne and Stone people since they seem to be our peers.
Schoology does. So Schoology links to Aspen.
Okay.
So all the grades would be one thing.
Oh, that's on this list too.
Because that way you don't have to, you don't have to go to multiple things. And the other thing, and the nice thing about Schoology is that you can also incorporate it. So like if you're using, and this is just one platform, I'm not familiar with it at all, but there's a ton of them. But the other nice thing about it is that you can put in your units and your videos and your supplemental materials and all that stuff in one place.
Yeah.
And that thing makes it a little bit easier, even from year to year.
Do we know of any schools that are using that?
Yeah, there's a ton of schools that are using it, for sure.
And that would be used by all grade levels
All
to
grade levels. Right.
communicate. So we would learn one platform, and the teachers would all be on
That's
board
my
with using
goal.
this platform.
Not necessarily. I mean, so that's one of the things the teachers would obviously be part of,
Did you ask if they'd be
of
on
that
board?
decision making.
Yeah.
But for us, it's really, I mean, it's what's going to be most useful for all stakeholders.
Right.
Right, and I think that's what we're and I really do feel that this is something that's long overdue.
And it would be a way to communicate with parents about what's going on, just overall, and
There's a lot of really neat things about it. Like for example, and again, I don't want to go too far into this because we like actually have to sort of like meet and talk about some of these things. But like blast everybody at once.
Right.
I can't do that right now with CPS.
Right.
It's an incredibly cumbersome system.
Yeah.
And something like that, it would be, everybody gets something on their text, which we don't have right
it has
now.
an SMS interface. Oh wow,
We
that'd
have
be
all of
awesome.
those things, and we need that because that makes things a lot. Most parents aren't on front of a computer; they have a cell phone with them. So we want to make sure that we can send stuff out like that. So that's something that I definitely think that we should be looking at as in terms of a long term, using this year to sort of narrow it down to a couple of choices, and then just.
So it would be great to have an actual communications meeting about that, just for the option that we can advertise it, and then if parents had, if they wanted to come in for public participation or the community, then I would have that option. So if you could have like just a meeting just about that issue, that's a big issue anyway.
Mr. Toledo, do you know the schools that have it, that maybe we can have somebody come to this meeting and let us know? That we could reach out to someone?
I know, like Francis Parker and Latin, I had a kid who went there from my old school, and she was like, "Oh, you have to get," and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We've used Schoology in 7th and 8th grade, so you saw it, right? With Mr. Roberts and Ms. McNeil, right? And everything is there, so it's in one particular spot. It's getting everybody to sort of say, "This is what we're doing."
Yeah.
Because.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, if we can define the requirements of what we want this software to do,
Yeah.
and then we go again what does Schoology do, Classdojo, Google Classroom, and other platforms that Naomi brought up. Then we can maybe publicize if we think one or two are the best out there, then even talk to some of the parents that, or teachers, sorry, that use different platforms and make sure, it meets their requirements or any major concerns.
PBLC has to be part of this conversation as well, because what ends up happening is, if I say, this is what we're gonna be doing, I will get, nope, sorry, contract says, you can't tell us what to put it on.
When is the
format.
next PPLC meeting in January?
And we always have a couple of days.
Because honestly, Joel, I want to be part of it, but next week's gonna be crazy because.
I think we're talking about a longer term, we're
Yeah,
talking
for
about a
sure.
longer term kind of discussion about this.
So is that in
So what's the
January?
date before the LSC?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no LSC meeting in January. There's no whole LSC meeting in January. There will very likely be a PEC meeting in January, but there is no LSC meeting in January.
Definitely communications meeting.
Right.
Yes.
It's a good time for committees just to meet absent an LSC meeting.
And quick note, sorry, I just have to step out for an 8:30 call. Apologies.
Okay.
Well, maybe
So, one caution about the free apps is there's really nothing free. They either advertise to you or they want your data.
Right.
And I just want us to be careful about.
So there is a budget for paid,
Oh, yeah.
that is an
I
option.
mean, that would be a priority for the school, just in terms of avoiding confusion and creating a format and a system that's just, that teachers can follow from year to year. When we have new teachers, they get, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and well, I'm not doing anything. I'm doing, I'm doing something at home, and yeah, we need to, I feel, I don't know what you guys feel,
I think having one
platform,
Yeah,
too.
makes sense.
so.
What do you?
I agree, or that it may be that we have, K through or whatever doing one, and what might be better for primary, like Schoology, for example, might be hard for the primary kids. There's a lot of folders and this and that. It might be, I don't know. I'm not saying I think it is, I'm just saying it might be. So we might need two different platforms for like elementary school, middle school. So I'm not sure about the whole school, like for sure.
I just think of the parents that aren't really, if their child's there and their kids are one, they can show them the platforms, because some of them aren't good at maneuvering around. This one's in this one, this one's in this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, and how do you do that? It's like when they call, I'm like, okay, what do you use in your room? Yeah, that's something, so.
Does everybody feel comfortable with going on that discussion? So it sounds like we could, separation. That committee just needs to meet. And publicize that for a couple of Fridays if possible, so that if parents have some feedback or teachers have feedback or whatever stakeholders have feedback, and want to be able to come and participate in that. One question just about overall communication that I have, I would really, I come and I post the agenda gets torn down from the front of the building. I want to make sure that the agenda is being sent out to as many people as possible. I would really like it to be in the Friday letter. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, we could put that on the LSC.
Yeah,
site.
just
I keep
whatever we
forgetting.
can, yeah,
put
so
that in there.
if you could just put a reminder, and if I need to send it to this, if there's I have.
Send it to Ms. Dean, because there's multiple things that happen, like there's, Ms. Arredondo, Mr. Roberts, myself, multiple people that work on it.
Okay.
But if we have, best thing to do, put it in Google Drive, right? So we'll have a Google Drive for it.
Okay.
The link for Google Drive will be all the LSC agendas.
Okay.
So that way, we don't have to change that link.
Okay.
So it just stays there automatically. You can just, I can set that up so that it gets put in automatically. So that way, I should have thought of this. But yeah, that's the easiest way to get it out there. It's the same, but it'll be part of that whole side, the side part.
Right, that's fine. I just want it to be, I want it to go to as many people as possible, and that would meet the public publishing requirement to have it in the Friday letter. No one is reading that thing as they come in the door, and it gets rained on and it falls off, and
I like the scanning thing, right, even our communications, everything in our Friday letter that we're sending out.
At least a link to it so that
Yes.
people can hit that link and they'll be able to see it. So, all right. I will be sure to do that then.
I'll create the folder right now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Is it my report? Okay, I will go fast. So-
And Mr. Toledo, the new business about, we discussed about
That's
establishing.
tonight at 7:20.
What is that?
That sounds great. This is gonna be a really long meeting.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
I was gonna say that.
I have about 11 hours.
We're
I did not take
Come
up
back
that
to
much
us.
time. Sorry,
No, we're
everybody.
fine.
Oh my gosh.
So, we can talk about that right now, actually. Just in terms of, because also, and I had a conversation about certain things, like, for example, oftentimes parents will ask me about events in school that may be related to student discipline. And they'll ask me, well, what did this person get? Or what did this happen? What are you doing? And I can't talk about those things. Like, I cannot, there's certain privacy things that students have that I will not divulge to community members. But then on Facebook, oh, Shlee doesn't talk about this, and why hasn't he talked about this? And I can't believe, we got to set up something very clear so that everybody understands that if it is a safety concern for the school, it will definitely be everybody will know about it. But if it is not, and it has to do more with student discipline, I would say that's not something that we want to share. So maybe coming up, like, I can probably come up with something just in general and say this, it's something that sounds a little bit more like what I just said, but something that will fit in the handbook.
Right, something that can go in the handbook that establishes if we have determined through these steps that it is a threat to the overall school. For example, if at high schools, at my son's high school, there are threats written on the bathroom wall. And they have to investigate those, and they have to increase safety. And we get a notice saying that that's what's happened. So, but if it's about disciplining one student because some contraband was found on that student, that's an individual student issue. And if there is no indication that there is like sales and distribution going on with the school, there's no need for the other parents to know what's going on with the discipline action with one student. However, with all this sort of like gossiping about it, parents feel as though they have a right to know about certain things, even though they truly don't. But I think if we communicate that in a clearer fashion with, these are the topics that will be discussed, that we will send a notice home for. These are the topics that will not be discussed because they involve an individual student. And if we have established that this is something contained within this individual student's behavior, then we will not be notifying parents. There's no need to do that.
Can we organize that so I have it on the paper when the situation comes up to keep treating parents? So now everything, one of the things I noticed, I've been watching very closely and monitor talking parents and all that. I mean, there's a lot of things happening, but also there are some miscommunication like anywhere else. I mean, it's really impossible to inform everybody what they're doing. But however, if we, if there is a little bit more clarity and communication and all that, some of the things that they really are kind of like vague, it clears up a lot of things. And for every side.
It'd be tough to itemize everything.
No. I mean, the thing is here, a lot of times people are just one-time answer. You see what I'm saying? You don't have to itemize everything. There are other things that, they're not, may not be listed, but however, you can talk with us. It's something that a lot of times is a waste of time. There's something that I really want students about why everybody has some questions about that. Something's really important that students need to be disciplined. I mean, come on, that's something you can do.
And I think that putting something in the handbook about the times which parents will be notified and the times during which they will not be, I think that would.
And what I did is every parent who asked me about specific things, I gave them this answer. Hey, safety is not a concern. We've dealt with it in terms of the school community. And feel free to let everybody know that we're not going to, because I'm not going to respond to it on Facebook. I'm not going to do any of those types of things. But But every parent who emailed me directly or talked to me directly about anything got that answer. And I think that that's kind of important for our parents going forward because, sometimes parents want to know exactly what's going on with somebody else's kid. I can't tell you what's going on with somebody else's kid.
I mean, and that just happened to me the other day, where Mary wanted to know, her son was being punished and wanted to know what the others got. And as I explained to her, that her concern was her child, that the administration took care of everybody else, not to worry about it. And they want to know who was involved, who didn't do it, that's not a discussion. So that's the privacy to protect our kids.
Can I make a suggestion, Julia? Can you write up something that you feel like would be a step-by-step thing that could potentially go in the handbook that you would feel comfortable
Sure.
with? And then maybe send it to members of,
Yeah.
what committee would this best be looked at?
I mean, I can share it with LSC, obviously.
Okay.
And I mean, then teacher reps would also have that. So
Okay.
we can-
So if you can share that, and then we can give feedback on it, and then present it at an LSC meeting, so that if anybody has any thoughts about it, they can present it, but just in order to stay transparent about how we're developing policies and things, yeah. So this will be the first meeting that we've gone really over time, so we need to,
You're just
kind
fine.
of move forward. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, it's hard to get caught up.
Very productive meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Very productive meeting.
Not gonna be able to do our dates.
So, Mr. Toledo,
So you guys all received my report. The only thing that I would tell you to look at would be, as you're thinking about principal evaluation and stuff like that, I've been trying to address my principal's report in class specifically about things, and in there, you will see, after we talk about budget and expenditures, I talked about improvements in the things that was brought up, integrity, which was also communication. I brought that up and put that in there, and also distributed leadership. And we talked specifically about the things that I've been doing this year. And again, this is a pet peeve of mine, because obviously, even though it's a poorly written question on the evaluation, it still is something that I'm very concerned about. Especially when specific, I can't talk about, say I can't talk about students, I can't talk about teachers. So if somebody says, oh, he told this teacher this, right? I can't go and say, no, I didn't talk to that teacher about it. Puts me in a bad spot, and I do not want to, I do not want to be put in that type of position. The other thing is, in terms of the other things that we've talked about, team lead development and support, that's one of the things I'm doing. Well, here are the things that I've been doing. With the University of Chicago, we've worked with a network for college success. Also worked with Northwestern, specifically about team lead development, instructional coaching, with Jim Knight. He's like the foremost expert on instructional coaching for the country, actually, in education. And also, I have about 6 sessions left with him. And he's absolutely fantastic, what we've seen with that. Also, something that always comes up is, like, what are we doing with grants and things like that. The Oak Ridge Institute, a lot of people don't know about this because I haven't publicized it. We are participating with them on STEM education grants and design thinking, professional development. So you can take a look at that. The other thing is, as you guys were sort of talking, I did link the YouTube video, The Road Ahead, the Next 5 Years. It's a 30-minute video, which I did about a month ago, a little bit earlier, but it basically was, this is where we're headed. And as you guys are thinking, because as you're making a determination as to offering or not offering, all that type of stuff, it's good to have that in the back of your mind, because we want to make sure that visions are aligned.
so everybody, I know it's a lot of material to go over, but please look over the principal's report and all of the information that's in the principal's report, and if we can link it to the minutes so that we can have those available, so that anybody who wants to go back and look at the principal's report can, parents, teachers, everybody.
We can link for the video, so.
It's all there.
But yeah, please go back and look at all of that stuff, because it's just really valuable information to have as we're moving forward and we're making lots of assessments, both about the school and about, everything else. It's important for everyone to be really informed. So that if you have questions or issues, you can raise those at the podium. Okay?
That's the principal's report.
I think that that's just about it. Are there any other issues that need to be included in new business? Okay, if not, then there's nothing under old business. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
I second.
Before I do this, everybody, we need to get a principal evaluation committee meeting on the books before we leave out of here today, so. And, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Anybody who wants to stick around?
But we need
Okay.
secretaries, we need everyone to stick around.
We are.
Okay,
Ms. Hopper, what do you guys